Hey everybody, it is Cinnamon Cooney, your art Sherpa, and today I'm going to show you how you can paint step by step, even as a total beginner, this acrylic painting on canvas of a pumpkin man. This is kind of like a version of a jack-o'-lantern that becomes a man, and our fellow, he is having a gourd time. So I really got into dad jokes recently, and that's how he got named. There's a lot of good Halloween puns out there, and I have been enjoying them so much. Now, for today's lesson, I want to tell you something, just in case you're very new, or maybe you've never seen the channel before, be sure and go down in that description below, open up that full description, because if you go to our website, this video page, it has traceables, it has step-by-steps, it has a grid map for you, it has everything you need as a beginner to be able to do this. It even has a how to use a traceable and how to begin acrylic painting video. So it's really about getting you started. This is what we call a two-hoop painting, which means in the range of beginner paintings, this is sort of in our middle range of difficulty. It still should be fairly kid-friendly and new painter-friendly because these techniques are super fun and the shapes are actually very simple. It's circles and not even like regular circles. It's like squishy circles. On the mic is my husband, John.
Hey guys.
So what he does in regards to making sure you get your painting perfectly at home, what he does is he tracks me with a bunch of cameras. He zooms in with those cameras. He makes sure you see the colors that I'm mixing and how I'm mixing them. He makes sure you see the brush strokes and how they're going on. So the things that I'm describing to you, you have that visual match for. So this is going to be a real-time lesson, and we're going to go through the whole thing. And at the end, you and I together are going to have a painting of this guy. Are you guys ready to do this?
Totally ready.
All right, so let's hop on it. So over here, I'm going to put my little reference to the side. I have an 11 by 14 surface, and like we like to do, we put some wishes and intentions on it. And of course, very importantly, a happy, safe holiday for everyone. A relief from fibromyalgia for Rebecca. And honestly, again, I'm going to keep wishing for a cure for this illness, a complete cure and treatment protocol for fibromyalgia that's actually effective. And then personally, I'd like to just wish to an end that we all get to see an end to random acts of violence, that we come up with a good solution for that. I don't know what that is. I'm just an art teacher. I would just like it to be solved. Kindness for all people equally, and that everyone receives compassion. And as I have been doing lately and will probably continue to do, I would personally like a license to Disney and to be official Disney artist. So hi, Disney. I feel like he's very Disney-esque. Personally, could be. He has that energy, right? So I'm going to take a nice big fluffy brush and get a little bit damp, and I will go ahead and, wipe these words away like you do. These are watercolor pencils, and so you can see if I come in here with a little bit of water, they go vanish on me, which is pretty nice. Take a little rag. I don't need to remove them too much because we're not leaving any of the white canvas there. Now, our first part of this is really cool. Remember I said I had a step-by-step? So here it is. The first part we're going to be doing is this upper part of the sky. We're going to be getting in this first color and its sort of randomness. We're going to be splattering some stars, and we're going to put in a moon. All things that are pretty simple to do. Let me show you how you're going to do that for yourself at home. All right. Now, the colors today, which I did not grab the correct colors. It's okay. I have them over on the other table. I'm going to put out a little Ultramarine Blue. The other color I'm about to go grab as I pop off camera is, this is Phthalo Green. I'm going to go grab Ultramarine Blue.
Okay.
Which is right here. It wasn't that far away.
It wasn't too far.
No, it was just on the other table. So many of you have seen me mix one of my favorite colors, which is Phthalo Turquoise, which is Phthalo Green and Phthalo Blue. But when you use Phthalo Green and Ultramarine Blue, you get a better teal that I really, really enjoy. I'm also going to put out some white paint that I'm going to thin for splattering because I don't think I have any fluid paint unless we got some at Michael's. No?
All I got was the surfaces.
Yeah. Okay. So I forgot to put that in the notes. And, you hope for psychicness, but don't expect it. So what you're seeing me do here is thin my heavy-bodied paint. I'm modifying it using an artist knife and a water mister. Isn't that pretty cool?
Yeah.
Very effective to thin paint. A lot of times, it's the hardest thing for students to modify heavy body paint because they don't realize that you can do this. So what I'm doing is I'm taking it to a more fluid consistency so that my dotting and my splattering will go over better and not leave really weird, crazy spots. So see how I've thoroughly mixed and incorporated that water into that?
Mm-hmm.
Thinning it out to like what you'd expect craft paint to be. You could also just use craft paint. I'm also going to put out a little bit of cad yellow, like you do, for the moon. Sounds good?
Yeah.
Now you're going to want to grab whatever your biggest kind of chunky or round brush is. You could use a hog bristle brush like this, a boar bristle brush like this. You could use a synthetic. What you want is just a big chunky brush. It kind of gives you cool texture. I'll demonstrate the Silver Ruby Satin number 12. But again, it doesn't have to be exactly this brush. You just want a big chunky brush. Using that same knife, I'm going to mix together, just to make an even color, my phthalo green and my ultramarine to reveal a teal. To reveal a teal. Okay, I'm just amused by myself, and I should not be.
No, why not?
I'm so weird. There we go. So there's the teal, and that is our background sky color. The brush strokes are going to be at an angle like this across the surface, and we're going to be trying to imply a little bit of motion to the sky when we do it. So here we go. Dip your brush in water, drag off the extra, load up, flip the brush to improve the load, right? You see me flip, flip, flip. And then just do your curve. This is almost a C stroke, but it's fairly large, right? And we're going to do this. I like to let the edges be a little uneven. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. So we are just trucking along here. Curved strokes, not straight across. They're curved and messy. Do you love it?
Mm-hmm.
Curved and messy strokes are kind of always fun. And then I can kind of come on the tip here and come across and just make sure that there's an uneven little line. I'll be weaving into it with my lighter sky color as I come up when I add a little bit of white. But for right now, this is all you're trying to do. To get a really rich dark sky, my recommendation is to dry this and apply a second coat. Because these colors are by nature transparent.
So yeah, just as between your layers, you want to make sure that you dry it thoroughly, and that's so that as you're doing your next layers, they're not sticky and tacky, which can cause the paint to ball up and sort of stick to the. Not nice. It won't lay down fluidly. So just make sure you get it thoroughly dry, and you won't have that issue. So, also don't use heat. I think I may have mentioned that a couple times. It's not good for your paint.
All right, I'm going to load up a little more ultramarine blue into my teal mix, and you're going to notice second coat is a charm. It takes it right into that night sky feeling. So sometimes when you're new to painting, you don't know, hey, I need a second coat. In art and in life, sometimes a second coat is required.
Mm-hmm.
Give yourself a chance to do a second coat. Lessons from the easel. They're good lessons, though. How's everybody doing in the chat today?
Really good.
Are they enjoying our 13 days of Halloween?
Yes.
Sherpa-ween. Anyone is here for the first time, be sure and shout out and say hi to the group. We do have a friendly bunch of people.
Yeah, I think I saw someone here earlier. This is their first time catching a live. So it was up there a little bit.
Well, hi, first timers. Sipping my coffee. This was all a ruse to get to my coffee, guys. And to let John just wander around with the cameras.
Well, I didn't know you were going to do that, so I have to scroll back up and find out who our new friends were. Someone from West Sussex, England. Ooh, hello. Hey,
hello from West Sussex, England. So I have a question for everybody over across the pond in the UK. In the United States, we have GPSs that have a British accent.
Oh, my.
And I was saying to John, that is only not uncool if over in the UK, you guys have GPSs with an American accent.
I can only, Everybody's got
Does your Alexa, like, what accent does your Alexa, your GPS, your phone have?
See, I want the American GPS that has the regional accents and dialects, so you can get a nice
from New Orleans.
Like
I want my GPS to be from New Orleans.
Or for the Texas Panhandle.
All right. We teach painting here. Don't worry. No need to make a comment. Yes, we chat because it gives everyone a chance to catch up a little bit on the lives, and it allows us to remember to keep our energy up and our spirits friendly. I have a special tool here. Now, this is from my own line of brushes. This is for the Galaxy set. You can find these online. You can find these at Michael's. You can use the coupons. It's all good. But what it does, it looks like a toothbrush, but you would never put it on your mouth. It just gives you a nice splatter. And I'm going to tap up and down, loading my brush, make sure that everything is distributed through there easily. And I'm going to flick some paint. Getting a little bit of a star splatter. And you can see why, there you go. When you see those long strands, that means that I didn't have quite my perfect thinning worked out. I'll show you the fix for that. Now, I have a video about other ways to splatter brushes, to make different splatters, so don't feel like you have to have my brush to splatter, though I do think it's a cool tool. I'm going to just take a little paint and just sort of remove it and make it part of the sky. Anywhere there's a splatter that just really bothers me, this is that moment to do it, and it won't hurt the painting deeply. Did I just get paint all over myself?
Would not be the first time?
It would not be the first time. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to make a bunch of dots. I do have a dotting tool.
What do you do?
I do. I don't know if I put it away where I can't find it, but I have one of those.
You hid it behind all your other tools.
It's possible.
The shortest
it is
of
just
the tools.
Huh?
It's the shortest of the tools.
It is my shortest tool, and if it gets put back in the big bin, then I can never ever locate it.
I think that it requested that I not call it short anymore. It's diminutive.
It has bailed on us because we've been calling it the wrong thing.
I think so.
All right. Well, if I don't find it, I'll show you another way I do dots. How's that?
Okay.
So if I absolutely can't find it, the other couple ways that I do dots is I just use the back of a small detail brush.
It seems to work too.
Well, and I always try to tell people, I make some good art tools, for sure. But the magic of the art is in you.
I do like the little dot tool because it makes the same dot every time.
It is very consistent and controllable in its nature.
Yeah, this dot seems to get smaller and smaller as you run out of paint.
Yeah.
Which is interesting that the other one puts the same size dot.
Well, it'll do this too.
Huh.
It will do this too. Any dotting tool will make a ever diminishing dot size because as the paint wicks off the tool onto the surface, it's just, the stainless steel and the paint doesn't really stick to it as much, and then you're not getting paint on one side of your brush. And you have a couple dot sizes, one being a very small one, because sometimes you need a very small size of dots. But this is what we're doing to get that sense of stars in our sky. I think that's pretty good. Now I'm going to dry that a little bit so I can throw in my moon real fast, and then we're on to the next thing.
So I was just going to go over here and take a quick look. I think I saw some folks saying they were wanting to know where on the website you sign up for the newsletter. And by default, when you join the website, it signs you up for the newsletter. If you want to change those, you can go to your account, which is in the upper right-hand corner. You'll click on the button up there to your account. And then in your settings there, you'll be able to go to your communications. And I don't have it open in front of me, but you'll have a communications panel inside there that'll allow you to remove or add if you want to just get messages or how you want those emails sent to you. But by default, you do get the newsletter if you're signed up on our website. Just make sure that your email address is updated to a current one.
Oh, do they have a default newsletter?
They were just, someone was asking how to sign up for the newsletter, and I said if you join the website and make sure that your email account is updated, then you should be getting the newsletter. If you have any trouble, email support@TheArtSherpa.com.
And we will help you. I'm going to kind of draw an extreme letter C here.
Extreme!
And then I just sort of thicken the middle, and that's how I'm going to get my little crescent moon. It doesn't really take a lot more than this, and I'm just going to use yellow.
Yeah, this is one of those moon that's been eaten out of.
Yes.
It's hollow.
It's hollow. But look, I have learned this because everyone has pointed out that if I have starry stars, I go like this now.
But see, now I can't say it's a holy star. It's like you take a bite out of them.
Well, it's just that's how it's lit.
Yeah.
So, And you can see I'm just doing the back of the brush method.
Well, the other one that I like is when a cloud goes behind the moon.
That is always very fun. Clouds behind the moon.
Actually,
so that optically can happen. It's the illusion of it, but
I know what you mean, but it's funny.
So now I'm going to get a little more of that wonderful ultramarine blue green color, this teal, and I'm going to come to the edge just for a second and re-wet this, blending back up into my sky. Sure, we're going to take out a couple of stars, but we're fine with that. Right?
Tell that to the stars.
While that's still wet, let's put out some titanium white paint. Now listen, if you want to know all the materials, those are in the description. They're on the website. They are about. So you are good. One of the things I'm going to check out is at what point I'm putting my horizon line, because that'll help me match these up. So real quick, I'm going to check where my 9-inch mark is, and I'm going to give myself a little mark here to say, this is where my land starts. Right about here. Okay? So I'm very lightly doing this. This is just going to help me demo this to you. So from the top, 9 inches down is where my land is going to maybe sort of begin. To make that awesome and work, what I'm going to do is load up my brush with a bunch of white. See, we're just loading it up with a ton of white. And I'm going to come back and forth at first. Going back and forth. Lots of white. Back and forth. At first. Then I'm going to grab just a small amount of my teal, and I'm going to blend that in there, and I'm going to begin to wisp up into the sky. See how we're doing? Make sure that you've got high areas and low areas, and then I can pull it back in to the area that I'm going back and forth on. So we're creating sort of that sense of horizon, but also we're creating that sense of cloud. You can see just going back and forth, blowing up this wonderful day. This is a really fun sky to be able to do. And it's actually quite beginner friendly because you're just about trying to make these different little randomized upward cloud strokes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there we go. Doing quite well, I think. And you can always get a little bit of a different tonality in here just to make sure that
now,
things are as you want it.
Can I ask you something?
You can always ask me something.
Is this one of those ones where you needed to stop and take a quick picture of it?
No, it's not, because remember, I have the step-by-step already done.
Oh my gosh. I just, I'm still a bit new to this, so I don't want to like
assume.
Oh, well, right, because
this right here is available to you
okay,
on the website, and it will help you get through all the stuff you've got to do.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure I didn't not remind you in case we needed to.
No, we're all good. So I'm going to add a little bit of my green, maybe even some of my ultramarine to my yellow ochre, and I'm going to get some white into that, and that makes a very light color. And I'm going to come here. I'm going to dip in water. Just grab whatever white I've got laying around. And I'm going to make this horizon line. I'll make it soft. You can see I'm brushing it back and forth to sort of make it a fuzzy, far away feel, right? Mm-hmm. That you do. And I'm going to go a little bit harder coming forward, taking that paint out of my big brush. Feather, 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 feather. I always like to make sure that this edge to the back is a little bit fuzzy, a little out of focus.
What size is that brush there?
This is a number 12 ruby satin. My other favorite brush in this size is a number 12 silverstone. In fact, I bring these to shows for people because it does so many cool things. Mm. So just going there. Now, as I come down further, I'm going to take a little of my green and my yellow ochre and some of my ultramarine. And I'm going to make this darker color down here, like you do. See how we're doing?
Yes, I see.
But it's all pretty soft, isn't it? A little bit of this. You can always green it up with a little green. It's not easy being green. Now, while I'm here, I'm going to put out a little burnt sienna. I like the burnt sienna.
Yeah.
I like burnt sienna. Burnt sienna. Old paint color. I'm going to add a little brown to my green. And we're going to come up front and add that deep color. See how deep that color is?
Yeah.
Just in the front ground, and I'm going to brush back and forth. I just make it super light. There we go. Whoop. We got a whole background in.
Wow, that went fast.
You know where we're at now? We are at step 2.
Oh, that went pretty good.
See, so that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to get yourself to this space. Make your space work here. Then you can take this time and be like, is there anything I want to add to step 2? Like, if I want to put out a little white and tip a cloud or do anything, it's a good time to do that. It's a good time to assess. We're about to have to dry. I'm going to show you how to use the simple grid method. I'm going to add maybe some white details. See what I'm doing? In my clouds to define them. Even though they're very breathy clouds, aren't they? I think clouds can be very breathy. Those will probably be behind Mr. Pumpkin Man.
Yeah.
But you just want to have fun with your skies. Dry your surface once you're super, super happy with. That would be the next step.
Yeah. Yep, it's good. It's important to make sure that you get that thoroughly dry, like I said, especially here, because as you put in the next layers of like oranges and things like that, it's really important that you don't pick up any of those lower layers, especially the greens and things, which will start to muddy and make that more icky. So let's not do that. And thank you guys for coming and hanging out. I mean, I really like having you guys in the chat. It's really nice to see you guys have, on a Monday afternoon to come in here and hang out with all you guys live and kind of paint and get to enjoy this with a whole bunch of people is the highlight of my day. So thank you guys.
Boom, boom, boom.
Boom, boom, boom. You're all done.
I'm all done. So we're going to talk about the 2 ways we can get the image on here. The first way we can get the image on is to use the transfer or tracing method. And there is a traceable on the web page that you can just download. It's PDF and you can print it out. Everybody's got a lot of recommendations for different sizing and tiling software that's out there. But basically, you're going to want it to fit the same size components as the grid. So you'll still use the grid to know how big your pumpkin guy can be. You can freehand him in at this stage, or you can use the grid method to freehand him in. And this is especially good if you're not confident in your drawing and you want to kind of work on it a bit. This is how you would do that. So to do this, what you'll need is a T-square ruler, yes, in the description below, and some chalk, like what you find on chalkboard. And this has a map, right? A very good map. And at the marking places, like at 2.5, 5.5, and 8.5, you would make marks. And then you would come here. These are your vertical marks. I have color coded this so you can see the red is the halfway points of the 11 by 14 surface. Then the black is this horizon line. And then these are the horizontal vertical guidelines so that you know where you're drawing stuff. See how that works?
Yeah.
Now, when we get all this in, I'm not pressing super hard with my chalk because I don't want it to live on my canvas forever, right? I just want it to be here for some small amount of time until I remove it with a damp brush. This is not oil pastel. Don't use oil pastels on your acrylics. You could use pastels, chalk pastels, but not oil pastels. That will ruin your canvas. And as of yet, I have no idea how to even get it off. Maybe a paint thinner. But then you paint thinned your canvas. So that's not good for your painting, right?
Mm.
Don't use those. Don't use oil-based colored pencils or oil-based pencils. Just of any kind. Now, from the top, right? From the top here, and the little arrow guidelines help you know where you're measuring from. See? This way and this way. John was super pleased with this the other day. He was like,
Yeah.
you had a plan. I'm like, sometimes I have a plan. Halfway mark. And then at 7. And then again at 10 and a half. And we'll make these horizontal lines. And this creates our simplistic grid. Now you can do a complicated grid where you go like every 1 inch or every incremental segment of the canvas.
Mm-hmm.
But I find for simple designs and objects, this method is just fine. It is no trouble at all. Just making sure all my lines are steady. All right. Now you see I have squares in. And what's this going to let me do? It's going to help me know where to draw my duder, my Gourd Time guy, right?
Mm.
So I can come from the bottom and I know that his little bum is right about here. It comes down. I need to leave room for grass and things to come up. And part of him comes forward. This gives you some scale, doesn't it, that you can relate to. So when you're giving your gourd a draw, you can go, oh, that's about where my gourd fits. You know, that's not too bad. This square right here, you can see that his body fits in about that space. And then above here, his head, right, comes down underneath a bit and around. And actually, I need to make this bigger. See, it's just really good to check the grid for what you're making, because it'll help you get your object relationship somewhat correct. Okay, and we're going to come here and then place in our little curl, and let's give ourselves a little hat that comes up. See how we bend that up? Pretty much what we're doing with our pumpkin guy. And that gives him the right amount of shape and size and space he's going to take up. He is, however, also a farmer, so he's got a weird little pumpkin that is right here. And it's pretty big. Let's get that weird little pumpkin that is right there. And then a smaller little round pumpkin that generally lives right about there. So that's his basic shape and space in there. Now, once you have him in, guess what you can do? You can use an eraser. You can
That's
use
just
an
your
eraser.
brush with some water on it?
Yeah, just your brush with a little bit of water, and it will both dust it off and then soak up your chalk so that your design is what remains that you can follow. And that is always fun, because you want something that you can follow easily, and then you can make any adjustments that you want to at this stage to make your little dude work better. Make your hat any way you want it. See how that works?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we're here, this thing, let me see if I can get this.
Do we come over and hands you?
I don't know. It just gets real tight on the back and then starts pulling free. But it's better now. I just loosened it. So you can see here, our next stage is to paint in the underpainting of our pumpkin and also the underpainting of our hat. I think we can all handle that, can't we? Let me show you how you do it. I'm going to put out a little bit of my cad red. Boom, bitty boom. And I'll also start to put out a little bit of my This is Cad Red Light, but you could also use Cad Orange. They would both work amply well. And I'm going to get, in this case, I'm just going to use a larger brush. I'm going to use a number 8's cat's tongue. But look, you could use something like this. You just want something about in that size range to help you paint things in. Okay, guys? So it doesn't have to be specifically something, just something that gives you control that you can paint in your backgrounds with. Now, I'm going to take a little of my ultramarine over to my Cad Red. And hopefully you guys can see this. And it's going to darken this red a good bit. And I'm going to paint in everything I have with this color. Just paint it all in. While I'm painting it all in, if you guys have any questions, this is a great time to ask them.
Let's see here. Does acrylic paint and charcoal pencils mix?
Yes, charcoal and acrylic paint are fine. Just know that the charcoal pencils, it has pigment, and that pigment will affect the color of your paint. You can even make that a good thing if you know it's coming. So that is a good thing.
And which kind of paint are you currently using?
I have a mix here of Artist Loft Level 3. That is their professional level of paint. It's new in stores. I have Senlier Professional Acrylic, and I have Golden, and I have some Holbein somewhere. So these are all pro grade paints. I can use them interchangeably. They all have beautiful performance, and each company sort of has wonderful strengths in the paint making field. Any of them will make a paint that you will be able to work with easily when you're ready.
Now, do you have a place where you have some color exchange information?
I do. I don't know if I put it on this one. So if there's a question for that, it might help me know what I got to put on this one.
Just in general, if you don't have these colors, what would you suggest?
It would, okay. So if there's any color that you don't have in a paint thing ever, right? You could use phthalo blue instead of ultramarine. You could use any orange that you have instead of Cad orange. You could use any good bright yellow. And you could use any bright non-crimson red and get this good pumpkin. You won't get the same result as me. Your colors may look a little different. But what's significantly more important than the colors is value. How light or dark an object is way more important to your result than the exact red. You know, like even if I was doing Pyro Red, it's very rare that you have to have that color to get the painting. You can always get a version of the painting with the colors that you have. If you're painting student paints, you may find that whereas I'm getting a nice first layer of coverage, you may find that you don't. And I would definitely paint it white first if I was painting very inexpensive paint. Which there's nothing wrong with that. We all have a budget. Mm-hmm. I'm just painting all these in with this sort of dark, burnt pumpkin color. Burnt orange. Remember how I used to be so crazy for all things burnt orange? Mm-hmm. It's just that's all I wanted in my life was all the burnt orange that I could get. The way John feels about cowbell, I felt about burnt orange. So I'm just brushing these objects in.
It's funny how the cowbell was more subtle
than my burnt orange.
It's not a blendy-in color.
No, neither is, but cowbell is not a blendy-in sound, so I don't know what you're saying subtle. I don't think that that's acknowledging the reality of cowbell. When I want to darken my orange, I can just add a little more ultramarine blue. And I can even come in and begin to acknowledge these shadows. See how we're doing that? And I'm brushing it down, I'm pulling it down to imply the shape of the pumpkin. Look at us go. I'm going to come under here just a little bit and just begin that implication of pumpkin shape. It can also be a nice time to come in and create shadow between the gourds. Shade your gourds.
You know.
So I'm adding a darker value right here just to separate out the space, and then I'm going to do the same right here between these two. You can always darken the bottom of your gourd at the base because as it's near the ground, the least amount of light can get to it, right? And then the hat. I think I got a little excited with my hat, but it never hurts. To get a little excited with your painting, you know, have a little bit of fun. It's completely doable. I'm going to put out a little of my black here. And I'm going to put out a little more of my Ultramarine Blue just in case I need it. I'm going to get my brush damp, drag off the extra, and I'm going to get my black just loaded onto it. And we'll just paint in our hat, our woogly, funny witch's hat, all with black. Look, big hat, little hat. As long as you're whimsical with the hat, you're okay on any hat you do. Your basic goals on the hat are leave rooms for the face. You know, if you've got a face, leave room for that. And we will erase any of the extra chalk lines that we are not a fan of. Sometimes I like to take a little bit of blue and white and just leave a hint of a mark here for myself that I need to highlight that a bit when I come up into the hat. It's a subtle thing. It's not something you have to do for the finished painting, but sometimes these little things can make your experience better. Make this all in just black. I'm going to dry this and erase my extra chalk marks. Yeah. All right.
All right.
All right. Big crazy hat.
Shoo.
Shoo.
So while she's drying that, we'll just say, yeah, if you're looking for the traceable, the step-by-step, any of the materials information should be in the description in the link down below, as well as a link to our website, where you can find all sorts of good stuff, including these resources and other stuff that Cinnamon likes to add in. So definitely check out that landing page. You'll see lots of cool stuff out there. So other than that, she's going ahead and just removing some of that chalk using her wet brush. That should pretty straightforward. Oh. Make sure you get that thoroughly dry.
There we go.
That's it.
That is it. We did all right, right? Now I'm going to take my number 4 out, I think, and I'm going to begin to paint in the starting of the details about Mr. Pumpkin. So first things that I'll do is I'm going to come here and I've got a little black and a little orange. It's going to give me almost, it's interesting, almost a burnt sienna. They're not that dissimilar. But I want something dark enough where it's going to show. And I'm going to come under the hat. And I'm going to begin to pull out his little gourd lines. Now, right here in the center of the hat, I have an interesting and important gourd line. I'm going to come down like that. That's sort of where his nose and things are going to go. Then maybe pull one down here. And make sure I've got some happening here. I also like to bring them under the chin and pull some up that sort of match what, you know, I've got up top. It's just sometimes easier to get these in earlier than later. You know, just trying to shape that pumpkin in. Come down here, similar deal, right? Get them gourd lines in. Gourds need lines, set them boundaries.
That's funny.
Coming up here, you can kind of see it's almost like an outline, but what I'm really trying to do is begin that shading. I will probably lighten that outer edge, but it doesn't hurt to have it worked in right now. Just for a second. Right here, I'm gonna definitely do one of those sort of more open and then following that around, defining my little pumpkin dude. Guess what we're doing here?
Yeah.
Same thing we did up there, Pinky. I'm just making sure that my canvas is taking the paint and listening to me. I'm gonna maybe put this one right here and go ahead and put one there. These are the fingers of my pumpkin. And whatever I do up top, I really, really want to do towards the bottom, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't hurt to shade this at all. See, I'm brushing upwards.
Yeah.
And I'm just blending this in. In a minute, when I go back with some lighter oranges and begin that shading process and put in his face, it's going to be like a pumpkin popped out of nowhere. This is also a good time to get a little of your ultramarine and a little of your black. And you can come underneath everything too. I'm going to put some little dark lines up that will be the foundation of some grass. I'm going to go ahead and just make sure that underneath here, I'm just sort of wiggling my little brush into a shadow. And you can even add some of that shadow color a bit, just a little bit, to the bottom of your gorgeous gourd. I'm going to come here, and sometimes I like to bring this slightly darker element slightly between these to help pull them apart, right? Back into our color for the dark part of the pumpkin, which is the cad red medium and the black. Let's come here and give this gourd some little segments. And also it's nice to make its top a little bit darker. And I like to try to match those segments to the bottom, so he can be very gourdy when I highlight him up. And same basic thing right here. Like sometimes it's nice to get the whole top dark, but then we're going to draw a little curve line. See, these are all C curves, right? Little curve lines that help define the shape of things. And sometimes it's very important to define the shape of things. And to that end, at this stage, you're going to get a little bit of your burnt sienna and some of your black. And you're going to mix them together to a deep, dark chocolate color. And I'm rolling my number 4 round to put these on the tip. And I'm going to come to the center of this little fellow and make a little stem mark. And then I'm going to come here and go the opposite direction. So that one's curved to the right, that one's curved to the left. I will get a drop of water and swirl this around and thin it out. As you do, I'm wiping the extra paint out of my number 4, and I'm going to come on the tip and make some delightful and charming little wiggly vines. So, those are fun. I'm also going to come up here and begin to put in his face. Actually, I'm going to do that last. Let me offload. I want to put a little more orange before I put in his face, if I may.
You may. It's your
I'm going to
show.
put my CAD red over here next to my CAD red light. And I'm going to half step these colors to each other, which means I'm going to mix the CAD red light and the CAD red medium and begin to paint this first orangeness.
All right.
Yeah. And you can see I'm paying attention to the segments that I did to see if I can enforce those even as I'm shaping this. And see how I'm curving these brush strokes?
Mm-hmm.
I might come between a couple segments just so that they have that rounded feel. And a little bit on the outside. And I will continue to do this through all my pumpkins. Because this will help me define them. How are you guys liking learning about painting pumpkins with a little gourd dude? Dude. I'm gonna come here. Same thing.
Now, you can mind if I ask a question here?
Yeah, it's a good time to ask me a question. I'm just
I thought it
painting this
might.
color through the whole gourds.
So Corey was asking, do you ever have a hard time coming up with an idea for a painting or envisioning what you would like to look like in the final product?
You know, in a sense, yes. Probably not in the same sense that you might at this stage of your journey, because now I have a lot of tool sets for figuring out what I want to paint. But I definitely have to do research most times. I have to, kind of look at what's going on out there, check references. I start with an idea. Sometimes I have sketches that I've got to do. If I'm working from a photograph, I've got to find a photograph I think is going to make a good painting. There's just a lot that I go through to get where I'm going. So I think that that's something everybody deals with, but it changes. I'm going to make sure that this orange is more defined right here. But it changes as you grow as an artist. See how we're keeping those little deep shadow lines for the gourd. And I'm almost dry brushing this in because that's okay at this stage. So if you're really struggling with what to paint, generally I find looking at other artists' art and seeing if it kicks off any ideas. And you don't just repaint their painting and call it an original. That is not how art works. But maybe you see something and you're like, oh man, like vintage trucks. There's a lot of vintage truck out there right now. I don't know if you've noticed it, but it's on every little hand towel, floor mat. It's in the lobby and the Michaels and all the places. And that helped me think, oh, I want to do a vintage truck. But I still had to look at a bunch of 1948 Fords and different scenes and ideas and reference photos and Pixabay and Upsplash and all those places.
Mm-hmm.
To figure out my story that I wanted to tell in the truck story. And that makes sense because everybody's telling a story with the trucks and they're all pretty simplistic. So how do we kind of tell a different story, especially if we're like, oh, I'm going to do some rustic painting right now. Paint in the primitive style. So you've just got to figure out where you are.
Now, these layers of orange,
Just pop it, don't they?
they just continue to round out those little gourd bumps.
So now I'm going to load up my black. We're actually not that far from done.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make one small high over here towards the right-hand side. And then I'm going to make one bigger eye. I'll tell you an interesting place to get art inspiration is the public domain. Artwork that has fallen out of copyright, especially old vintage artwork,
Mm-hmm.
is often in the public domain. And there's some really good creative jump boards and ideas to go back and revisit artistically. And that is not only legal, it's artistically sound. I'm going to put a nice little nose right here. like you do. And then for the mouth, I come up to the side. I like to give him one downward tooth. You got but two teeth. And then a little upward tooth. It's a thing that I like to do.
Makes him a little friendly.
It does. And, you know, as many of you know, I can paint some really scary art.
There's
Some
been a
pretty
couple.
decent gore, but this Halloween I decided to go cute.
I like him.
And also, you know, we had some certain things that we had to get done and work out. So the other thing we're doing on this stage is the hat. So let's look at the hat real quick. First, let's load up a brush and kind of come in here and make sure that our hat is looking good. It's big. It's awesome. It's one of those floppy brims. If you like Coachella, just think Coachella. Right? Because that's what you're doing. You're going to come here and I'm going to go ahead and sort of define the top part of the hat again up here. I just want all the paint to be solid and to look finished and resolved on these edges here, which is what I'm doing. I'm just making sure my edges are sharp. When you do dry brushing, the edges aren't sharp. They're slightly diffused, but if you want an object to hold a specific space, sharp edges are a great way of doing that. Now when I have that, I'm going to take a little of my ultramarine to my black, and I'm going to get some brown, white. I don't even know why I said brown. And I'm going to come here, and I'm going to brush a little slight reflection here. And then I'm going to come to the middle, and again, brush a slight reflection, and maybe one right here. These are little spots of the hat that are just maybe a little bit in light, but it's black, so it doesn't reflect a ton of light. Come across the brim, adding that reflection up. Then I'm going to get my brush rinsed out. I'll get some white. It doesn't have to be perfectly white, but you do want it to be brighter than what you've had. Let's add a little reflection there. Along the brim, I think is always nice. And then a little bit coming up the brim. And then we can assess. Right? Take that out that way. Just trying to make this a bit of a pop, right? Pop a little bit of the brighter white here. I think that's looking pretty good.
Yeah.
Make sure your gray is like light enough to be seen though, because I think mine's a little bit not quite light enough right here. There we go. That's perfectly fine. That gives us a little bit of a hat. I'm gonna step back and look at it. You step back and look at yours.
Wow, yeah. It's turned out really nice.
He's looking good. He's looking really funny. Okay, so I've got some more I've got to do. In this step, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding some more of the highlights and lighter values. We're going to be putting in his little stick arms. We're going to be finishing off the face a bit. And we're going to begin to talk about the grass once a little more of his definition and stuff is worked out. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, so that really starts to be, I'm going to come into, you know, I've got my half mix, then we start to get into the yellow, and I'm going to begin to paint in some of his highlights. It's a fun thing to do. Enjoy it. Sometimes I lose a little bit of my features, but it's really easy to put them back. So don't stress about that. Yeah, we're just finishing this off.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, what is it that makes your colors look so vibrant?
The fact that I'm painting professional paint and I'm using real pigment, that is why it's more money, is the materials used in the paint cause that vibrancy.
Mm.
Real CAD does look different than other things. It just does. I'm going to make a much lighter yellow here. I'm going to come in and maybe right there on that outside, right?
Yeah.
And right here. A little bit there. And some here. You can always come in and get some just cad orange. Coming back into your darker areas. And it's just really about painting your pumpkins in a little more defined way. Layer up those oranges. It's fantastic. Coming around and defining those. While we're in here, I'm going to take a little bit of white over to my yellow-orange kind of mix. And on the inside of his eye, and then his nose, and then his eye, and then on this far inside of his mouth, I make a little highlight. Isn't that lovely?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to grab a little of my black and brown again, thinned, drops of water. Fix anything that I think needs fixing. Strategy, you'll notice that I am changing, I'm not using the same water jug for the colors. My black is now going mostly in here and my brighter colors are going in the other one.
Mm.
And that's another thing that I do to keep my colors bright.
Clean fresh water as often as you can.
Clean fresh water as often as I can. I'm going to come to the back side with this more like pure cad and begin to brighten up Mr. Pumpkin Pants. He needs a little brightening up, doesn't he?
Seems to.
I like to brighten my pumpkin dude. Do. So the darker the value is, the more I put that to the back side, right? So those oranges and reds go to the back side or to the underneath curve. Then as I'm moving forward, I get more into my brighter colors. Coming here to the outside edge. And then when I have that, I go right into my yellow and cad red light to lighten that even further. And come forward and get this too while I'm at it.
Just some gourd.
Gourd love.
Gourd bumps. This is sort of like, it's not phrenology, it's gourdology.
Oh my goodness, I'm painting some pure cad red. So you can see I do my deeper, darker colors coming to the back, and I like to brighten it moving forward. You can soften your lines that you've got showing. You can do a lot. You don't want them to go away though, guys. You want them to stay. You get a little over enthusiastic, you can always soften it. Contrast can be good.
I always enjoy when someone's, in chat. They're like, "Hey, who else here is watching at work?" And inevitably, their boss is like, "I am."
Oh, did that happen again today?
Not today, but it has happened before.
Okay. Put out a little more yellow. Cad yellow. Take a little of my orange over to that cad yellow. I hope you guys are good today.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoying this process.
Well, there's some lunch break sneakers.
Well, good for you. Painting is important. Helps you be better at your job, I'm sure. You can see that's how I like to just get the little sense of things. If you lose anything, you can always come back in even with just brown. See? And don't feel like you're ever stuck anywhere. Same thing, these guys.
Now, how many hoots do you think this is?
2 hoots.
2 hoots?
Yeah. It's a 2-hooter, but I feel like a reasonably easy to do 2-hooter. Like, it would still be pretty beginner friendly, and the only reason it's elevated to anything higher than a 1-hoot is just because of the layers.
Now, while you're putting in those layers, could you explain what interference paint is?
Yes, interference paint is a particulated metal paint that has been, irradiated?
I don't know. I know it's like, it's got...
it has a chemical treatment to it very similar to like a Mystic Crystal. They run a chemical process over it and electrify it, and then you get a color shift to that metallic pigment. Interference paint is that stabilized so it doesn't patina or change or alter over time. It is definitely something that's impacted by the amount of money that you spend on it. So the pro interference paints just have a lot more of that and are a lot more stable. And they work you can mix them into a paint and change it a little bit, but in my opinion, and I have videos on this, I actually did a video on interference paint, it's best to go over a dark color with it because that's where you really see the color shift.
Interesting.
It is interesting.
I say that as someone who's never used interference paint.
Yeah, but you've watched me use it, so.
I've watched you use interference paint.
There's not a lot of reason to do interference paint on a car. Let me get more into my orange here.
I don't know. Like, there's some color change.
I mean, but that you guys have that crazy car paint for that.
Well, it's what I find just interesting since the whole paint world is that most pigments are developed for the automotive industry because they consume more than anybody else, except for coatings on like industrial coatings, ships, buildings, stuff like that. That's, again, slightly different. But
yeah,
for the most part, the automotive industry uses more paint pigment that's in those
I'm mixing
unique
that
ranges.
dark gourd color again to just redefine these little things. No,
Sorry.
I guess that's true, and maybe that's where our interference paints came from, right?
I don't know. I'm sure it's a technology derived from something there. You're giving those gourds some deep grooves.
Yeah,
They're groovy gourds.
I'm grooving them up more. Popping those contrasts so we can really see what they've got going on.
It's not quite a disco gourd, but it could be.
Now, I'm going to come in and get a little more of, now that everything's a little dry, a little more of my yellow-orange here. Doesn't need to go everywhere. I'm just going to put it a couple places. I like to rinse out if my paint is feeling thick, which is a thing that can happen. There we go. So I've got some highlights going, don't I? Very good little highlights. And then the next thing I can do is I can get a little black on my brush. Dip. We're almost to the end of this stage. Now here, I'm going to make a shoulder right almost across diagonal to his little mouth. And make a little curve mark. I'm going to come down and I take this to a point. This is an interesting thing that I do. Take this to a point, and then I come forward from the point, and then I'm going to make 2 little sticky fingers. See how we're making a little stick?
I do.
But he's got like a little thorny elbow. I love that about him.
He's like, give me some room.
This one's going to do a similar thing. It's going to come up. And remember, it's a stick, so you don't got to be worried about it, right? And then its little fingers are going to go, what? Now we've got the beginnings of some arms. I'm going to take a little of my brown and my green and start to think about some deep grass. And to do that, I will simply come up with my brush, making little grass-like strokes, helping anchor these objects in this space here. Brown and green. You can bring some of the grass in front of him. And then I like to do like a little loose front brush stroke in front. And loose means I'm not trying to really make it look like anything. I'm just kind of woo! Just being free and expressive about it. I'm going to definitely add some grass between these two. And I'm going to put out some defined little bits right here so that everybody's got you can see I'm just darkening this up. Back and forth, darkening it up. Sometimes I might come in and get some just pure phthalo, which really pops, guys. At this stage, it pops wonderfully and really makes a noticeable impact. Layering grass in its grass colors will always go well for you. I'm going to add a little yellow ochre, not my bright yellow at this stage, a little yellow ochre to my green mix. And as you can see, put some sort of muted highlights, stroking those towards the left and underneath him. Guess what we are?
What are you?
Stage 5.
Ooh, stage 5.
We're stage 5. We're literally nearly almost done with this piece. Now,
Literally?
Literally.
As if it was written in a book.
Working on that. Working on that. You'll be losing me a little bit after the 13 days of Halloween because I'm trying to resolve up my book.
You're working.
I'm working. I'm working. So now we've got some pop of highlights that we want to put a couple places, the white highlights that we want to put a couple places, and the bright highlights on the grass, and then of course the wonderful floating away little leaves that are going on. So first, let's do our wonderful floating leaves. Let's rinse out our brush thoroughly. And I'm going to go ahead and just get some cad orange and a little cad red here, and I get it on my little brush. And it basically goes like this. Little touches. Some are bigger. Some are smaller. And they, come down. And they come down here. And then once I have that all going, I can add to it. Make some bigger, some smaller. And then I'll come right into my yellow here and highlight some of these. See how I'm doing? Mm-hmm. It's an important touch. That weird little highlight will help your little circle of leaves look even cooler. Don't skip. You want to give it some loves. Make it feel like, stuff be a-blow in here. I'm going to get some mostly yellow. It's not going to be a pure yellow. It'll still have a little bit of the orange in it, but it is the brightest color by far that I have. I'm going to add a little bit to this outer edge right here. One here. I'm going to come on this side of the nose. around the eye and make a highlight there. Highlight here. One right there. I'm going to come here. I'm going to highlight to the front. You come across, highlight. Top of this. Maybe a little bit over here. One touch there. I'm going to strongly highlight the front of that. And then let's get into our Good Time gourds over here. Highlight you, dude. So those are a pop of color.
They are.
I'm going to take my yellow ochre and a little bit of my black and some of that thinned white that I have. And I'm going to very carefully add a highlight to my twig. You can also use burnt sienna if you want to. But I find the contrast of highlighting the twig is very important. See how it just helps it pop out?
Mm-hmm.
I love doing these. It's looking so good. Now I can take a little bit of my yellow and my green, and I'm going to make a very bright color. It's okay that it's tinted with a little orange. Get my wine into it. And let's give ourselves some highlights in the grass. See how those highlights in the grass just pop it?
I do.
You don't need that many, right? It's just a little bit of them, and then you're like, wow! You here. And then all of a sudden we just see that grass. Rinsing out thoroughly. I'm going to come into that white that I thinned earlier. And I'm going to touch a little bit right here. We're going to add one right there. Right there. A little bit here. This just helps you define your gourd a bit. Look at those gourds just a popping and a shining. Because he's a good pumpkin keeper, right? He knows how to take care of his own. I'm going to come to the eye and just very gently outline these outer edges. And that's how we get that fabulous pop, pop, pop on him. Anything you need to do on your little arms here. I sometimes like to give a little highlight to that. So whatever you've got to do. And then I'm going to get a little bit of my green and a lot of my white. And I'm going to come right here and put in my moniker. So I usually use a little signature brush, but I will sometimes sign with the red. It just gives me a bigger, less delicate signature. Doesn't hurt anything, especially since I was very, very thoughtful about what I wanted to do.
Now, this is making me want to go get some little pumpkin candies.
It's just delicious and wonderful. Now,
it's so cute.
If you're having fun on the 13 days of Halloween, please let me show you what we've got coming up, okay, that you can enjoy. So we've just finished Mr. Pumpkin Man, yes? Mm-hmm. Look at that.
Oh, that one's so good. I can't wait for that one.
Halloween tree. It has a step-by-step. Creepy cocktail. It's the highball.
You know, I'm a fan of rock eyes, and this falls right in there with that.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's just terrific. So we have that coming up. We have...
this is going to be good.
Now, in the one that I'm going to show, I won't show you how to do these until the end. And what I'm going to say is these are the OG Sherpettes. These are the original Sherpettes.
Yep.
We can't really say their name because they're in incognito, but I think we all know who it is. So this is in here, and we've got this happy little set of pumpkins. And well, he's not happy. He's pretty sad because his little buddies have left him away. And this guy is like, oh no, wait for our friend. And this one's like, ha ha ha, I never liked him anyways. And you can put your family's name or anything special here that's meaningful to you. We just did Red in the Woods. And this was actually, people are getting an incredible job from that. And so that's what is coming up in front of you. Plus, we're finishing off with Baby from Supernatural. Let me put our
picture,
big, beautiful one here. I just like you to be able to see what you did. So we got Baby from Supernatural, and of course, the incomparable, I think it's one of the best pieces I've done in a long time, Magical Cat on the 12th.
Magical Cat.
Every single day. These all go into the Halloween playlist, so you can find everything. You can find the resources on the website. They're all free to use and download. And I think we're going to be at 70 Halloween paintings.
Wow.
Full tutorials that you can do at all kinds of creepy Halloween paintings, D&D Halloween paintings, cute, adorable Halloween paintings, little kid Halloween paintings, fan art Halloween paintings. Pretty much, if you have something that you like, chances are I have painted it in some way one of these years. And so you can just have your October be how you want it. Be good to yourself, be good to each other. And I want to see you at an easel really soon. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.